Should it be up at the top of your screen? Yeah.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep. Here comes a couple more people. Well, just a reminder, this is now being recorded. I think everyone that now joins the room will hear that lovely little pre-recorded message. I want to welcome everybody to the Sierra Club Loxahatchee Group General Meeting. My name is Linda Smith, and I'm the current Executive Committee Chair of your Sierra Club Loxahatchee Group, and I'm your MC tonight. This meeting is going to be recorded, as I said. Mary Cassell has graciously accepted being the chair chat overseer. So if you have any questions or technical difficulties or something, put it in the chat and we will do our best. I would not say our Zoom skills are 100%, but we're getting better every time. So see if you can stump the chump. But, and that always comes out bad when I say that. We're going to have an open mic session at the end of our program to discuss topics that are important to you. So if it doesn't have to do with this particular meeting tonight, save it for the open mic. Everyone who's registered tonight will receive a follow-up email within a week with some hints and links and things like that. So if you have any questions after that, feel free to reach out and give me a call.
Hold on, let me just. So, oh, it's just a local group. It hasn't started yet, though.
No, Paul, can you mute yourself?
People to...
No, we're started the program. You're being recorded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, what'd you say?
So I hope everyone's been viewing our Loxahatchee Group website.
Hold on, let me just mute it. So they're just telling me I'm being recorded.
So hopefully everyone's going to the website and you can see the exciting events and meetings that we've got going. Please check out these meetings. Please feel free to join at any time. When you click on the link, you will get contact information. Everything is Zoom. So as discussed, parking will be a premium, but do try to go to the Zoom meetings and check them out. We did have our first electronic election this fall, and these are our new executive committee members, also our officers and committees. You can see some openings. We have an opening in membership. We've got a loose group starting to work on that, but we need some help there, and we also need help with Facebook. So if those are things you're comfortable working with, please feel free to reach out to me and we'll try to hook you up. Our Conservation Committee has been very busy and is one of our more active committees, as you can imagine, because we are the Sierra Club. We've been having a lot of work on our agricultural reserve. There's a new threat from GL Homes, and we do have tonight a special video that is hot off of the video press of our favorite Conservation Committee Chair, Drew Martin. So I am going to stop my share at this point and try to bring that up. And if it becomes too cumbersome, because I just received this probably around 6 o'clock tonight, we will keep going with the other slides.
Not getting any sound.
Ah.
Into another area. This land would allow the area in the ag reserve near the Loxahatchee Wildlife Refuge and near here in Green Cay, where we are today, to be developed. And that would greatly make the houses in the ag reserve be of much less value. It would destroy the quality of life which you in the ag reserve and those in Cobra around the ag reserve have paid so much to have beautiful homes that are in an area that is not urban. It will turn the ag reserve into an urban area. This will greatly diminish your quality of life. It's very important to remember that this provides no benefit to you whatsoever. All the benefits will go to people living outside of this area. It is also questionable if this is even a good idea. This land being swapped is already in conservation and will not be developed. It will take land that is in conservation in the ag reserve and guarantee that it will be developed. This land will be very close to the Loxahatchee Wildlife Refuge on State Road 7. It will not provide any benefits. Things like workforce housing are not a true benefit because workforce housing could be placed outside of the ag reserve and provide benefit, just as much benefit as you would get having it in the ag reserve. What we're saying is we don't want this swap to take place. It is also being rushed through by certain commissioners who will only have one more year on the dais. What we're asking today is that people contact their county commissioners. Remember, if this development happens, it will degrade your quality of life. It will greatly increase traffic. It could potentially increase the risk of flooding, as open lands that can take stormwater today will now be in development. It is very important not to rush this through. There is no plan for the land that they are proposing outside of the ag reserve. And remember, there is already land set aside to help the Loxahatchee Wild and Scenic River. That land was saved by the Sierra Club when we prevented the county from putting scripts on the Mecca Farm site. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Drew. I'm going to pull up my screen again and share. Hopefully, I'm sorry the audio didn't come through at the beginning. Hopefully it was better after I took care of a little technology. But we really want to stop this swap that's happening. So as Drew said, please call your county commissioners, write your county commissioners, ask your letter or email to be read into the record. We have 2 chances next week coming up. The first one is Tuesday, February 1st at 2 o'clock. And it is at the 6th floor council chambers at 301 North Olive. That is, you get to speak for 3 minutes about anything you want. We're obviously encouraging you to go and speak against the ag reserve swap. The next opportunity is Wednesday, February the 2nd, and that starts at 9:30. That is the full-blown county commissioner meeting. And the agenda has just come out today, I believe. So we will have a better handle on what time things are going, but you do need to arrive early and sign a comment card, putting in your personal information. So please mark your calendars.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
It's Sheila. I've lost the screen. I just have a little screen in the corner right now. I can't seem to get it back in. Should I go out and completely and come back in?
I would try to go to your upper right-hand corner of your screen and hit a different view.
No, I can't even do that. I know what you mean, but it's not happening.
She'll,
Yes?
Mary, you're muted. Yeah, go ahead and do that, Sheila. Because we can't troubleshoot your machine right now.
Okay, I'm gonna go out completely and then go back.
Okay,
Okay, sorry.
Good
thank
luck.
you.
Okay, so we obviously need volunteers. I think I already mentioned that earlier in the program. So please let me know if you have any interest in volunteering. This is a list of our Conservation Committee meetings coming up. It's going to be Wednesday, February the 2nd, after the County Commission meeting. The Political Committee is actually not here tonight, unfortunately, because they are having a political committee meeting for the state tonight, but they will be bringing us all up to date on February the 17th. There's a communication meeting and an equity and inclusion and justice meeting. So mark your calendars accordingly. Please also mark your calendar for the next month's meeting. It is environmental pollutants versus human health. And the winner is ... We're going to find out who the winner is. And I have a feeling it's not going to be us. This is going to be a joint meeting between the Sierra Club-Loxahatchee group and the League of Women Voters of Palm Beach County. Note the time change. This meeting is going to start at 7 o'clock. That's a half hour early. So you're going to have to move it along after work or after dinner to try to make it to our meeting if at all possible, but mark your calendars, Thursday, February 24th, 7 o'clock. Now, I also have a mystery question tonight. We tried this a little bit ago in one of our meetings. Tonight's prize is a Sierra Club hat. So this is just to get a little fun into the meeting, a little friendly competition. So at the end of the presentation, we're going to ask a question, and whoever can get that correct answer into the chat first will win this lovely Sierra Club logo hat. So take notes and pay attention. Oop. And so now I'd like to introduce our speaker tonight. Joe Bonasia is a retired teacher and longtime member of the Sierra Club. He is the Vice Chair and Southwest Florida Regional Director for the Florida Rights of Nature Network. He also serves as Citizens Climate Lobby Legislative Liaison to Senator Rick Scott, and I can imagine that is a wonderful job. And he advocates for the carbon fee and dividend program that CCL has been actively pursuing. This is an essential means of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. On our website, you will find a link to many of his op-eds on Florida voters and the Right to Clean Water Amendment, information about Senate Bill 856, Conservation Floridians need to tell your U.S. senators that they should support carbon pricing, and Florida Clean Waterways Act. So feel free to go to our website and check out some of those op-eds. And now I am going to stop my share. Joe, you will be able to start your share.
Okay.
Did we have any questions in the chat that we should discuss before going into the program?
No, we do not yet.
Okay. Take it away, Joe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I see you got a couple of Right to Clean Water ambassadors on tonight. Hello, Kathleen. Hello, Paula. So I want to jump right in. I want to start with a nice story. This is one that is told by Professor Oliver Hauk. He teaches law at Tulane University. He's one of the co-authors of the nation's Clean Water Act. He is now a proponent of rights of nature. So he tells about a French sailor who was sailing down in New Zealand. I think I'm getting some sort of feedback. I don't know if anybody else is hearing that.
I will mute myself. It was probably me.
French sailor was sailing down in New Zealand through some dangerous waters, but he thought he was through that. And so he set his sails so he can go down below deck for just a couple of minutes, make some tea. But as soon as he went below deck, he starts hearing this racket from outside. He immediately goes up, and there's a great commotion. It is a group of dolphins, and they're slapping the water. They're making all these agitated sounds. It's obvious that they want to get his attention. And as soon as they see that they have his attention, they submerge. They reemerge a moment later, swimming in single file, and then all of a sudden, they veer left. They submerge. They reemerge again, single file, swimming, and then they turn left. And he looks around and he understands that they are trying to tell him he needs to change direction immediately. And he sees the wind had changed. He is indeed heading back into dangerous waters. And as soon as he tacks in the direction that they indicate, then all of a sudden they're celebrating. Dolphins are jumping out of the water. They're doing somersaults. Everybody's happy. All of the dolphins leave except for 2 of them who position themselves on either side of the boat and continue to pilot him a while longer until he is completely out of harm's way. And you can go online and you can find similar stories with dolphins and swimmers. All of a sudden that they're being surrounded by dolphins and they look around and there are sharks out there. Same thing with surfers. After telling this story to his students, Professor Houck asks a question. He says, what does this story say about nature and what should law do about it? Think about that a little bit and you realize the next question, or one that it automatically leads into, is what should our relationship to nature be and how should our laws reflect and maintain that relationship? I moved down to Florida in 2016, Cape Coral, Southwest Florida. I very quickly started learning about blue-green algae blooms. I had never heard of them before. I learned a lot more about them in 2018 when the Club-Loxahatchee River was full of green gunk, as were the canals of Cape Coral. People were getting sick, pets died, people were going to the doctor. This was also at the time that we were hit with a rather historic red tide. Perhaps you'll remember there was a state emergency declared. I remember being on the boat with my brother, and in the distance I see this white scum on the surface glistening. And as we came closer, I saw what it was. It was thousands of fish, white belly up, floating. We had tens of thousands of tons of dead sea life on our shoreline down here. I grew up on Long Island. We're surrounded by water. In my 60 years up there, I had never heard or seen anything like this. There was a movie going around at the time, perhaps you recall it, Toxic Puzzle. It was about a Dr. Paul Cox and his research connecting blue-green algae blooms to degenerative diseases. Something, obviously, is very dramatically wrong with our relationship with the natural world. It needs to be fixed. And that is my lead-in to what we're going to be talking about tonight. So I'm going to share my screen now. It is the right to clean water and health, right to clean and healthy waters state constitutional amendment. I'd like to provide you with a little bit more facts about where things stand. 80% of Florida's over 1,000 artesian springs are polluted by excessive nitrogen concentrations, 80%. The Florida Springs Council did an analysis, a study a couple of years back, and they concluded their research said that reducing nitrogen enough to meet state water quality goals would take 217 years under currently proposed projects. Flows in our springs and spring-fed rivers have declined by more than 1/3. And this one is one that I read relatively recently. This comes from our Calusa waterkeeper, John Pisani. There are nearly 1 million acres of estuaries and 9,000 miles of streams and rivers designated for recreation that are impaired with fecal bacteria. Some pretty stunning and upsetting information. I spoke about red tide before. By the way, a study was done about red tide down here in 2018, and it cost our local tourist economy $184 million. Whereas from 1878 to 1994, there were 64 months of red tide. Perhaps understandable, red tide is a natural phenomenon. In the last 27 years, there have been over 195 months of red tide. This information, as the rest of the facts on this slide, come from a book that I highly recommend to everybody. It's called The Toxic Inconvenience by William Penniman IV. He's a man of absolutely stellar credentials. I never thought a book about algae blooms could be an interesting read, but this one is. It's from him that I learned that we have 50,000 tons of legacy phosphorus sitting at the bottom of Lake Okeechobee. It was from him that I learned that over these past 50 years, our state has issued 23,000 national pollutant discharge elimination permits that allows industry and agriculture to discharge pollution into the surface waters of our state. 23,000, that's 10% of all the permits issued in the nation. And we're one state. As of 2018, when his book was published, of the 4,393 water bodies reviewed and assessed by the state, in the state, 2,440, over half, have been declared impaired. As you know, as noted, I'm a former teacher. If I gave an exam to students and they got more than half wrong, that constituted failure. More than half of our waterways are impaired. That constitutes failure. And of course, everybody knows what was going on this year with manatees. Polluted water has killed tens of thousands of acres of seagrass. That's the primary food that manatees subsist on, and it has contributed to the deaths of over 1,000 manatees this year. So the system is failing to protect us and our waters. This amendment exists because of the failure. If everything was working, we wouldn't need this amendment. But the system is not working. So why isn't it working? Well, I don't think it's going to be a great surprise to a lot of people on the phone to say that special interests have undue influence over state legislatures, agencies, and environmental policy. And often they write the laws that legislators end up sponsoring in the House and in the Senate. I'd like to give you an example. It was introduced last year as SB 380, and it seeks to preempt the authority of local governments to pass any laws that have to do with regulating greenhouse gases. You can find the exact language on the ALEC website. That's the American Legislative Exchange Council, because they wrote it. And our state legislature simply submitted it. The state legislature is increasingly preempting the authority of local governments in other ways too. I'm sure everybody knows that they preempted the authority for local governments to ban single-use plastic bags. More recently down in Key West, those folks wanted to place a ban on some sunscreens that had chemicals in them that were corrosive to the coral reefs down there. A lot of people go down to Key West in order to go swimming, diving, and check out the coral reefs. The folks down there wanted to protect them. The state preempted their authority to do so. And as I'll talk about more in depth in a couple of moments, they preempted rights of nature laws in the state back in 2020. So it is because, one other thing I want to say is that the legal playing field is not level. Corporations have tons of rights that we don't, and when it gets into court, things end up going their way much more than our way. But I'd like to corroborate that fact with a rather stunning study that was issued back in 2014. It was conducted by Princeton and Northwestern University researchers. And they compared all the laws passed between 1981 and 2002 and voter preferences on each policy decision. They found that overwhelmingly the policies didn't reflect the will of the people, but rather the preferences of special interest groups. Policies, note the study, tend to tilt towards the wishes of the corporations and business and professional associations, and especially diverge from the will of non-elite Americans. I think we could see this a lot. You look at, I don't know, almost every day I open up my newspaper and I see something along these lines. The one that was recently published in the Palm Beach Post, perhaps you've seen it. Lawmakers admit BMAP isn't working, but they're not fixing it. Well, why not? Well, then they have to come up against, big ag in the state, and they don't want to do that. It is because of the very evident failure of our regulatory system that folks in Orange County back in 2020 passed their historic Right to Clean Water Charter Amendment. It was approved by 89% of the voters. When is the last time you ever heard of 89% of Americans agreeing on anything? 89%, which means no matter what their political persuasion was, their religious background, their educational level, their economic status, everybody, virtually everybody, approved this law. What did it do? Well, it granted citizens a right to clean water. My experience has been that most people think they have this right, that it's guaranteed in the Clean Water Act, the Federal Clean Water Act. I have heard people say this when giving presentations. The Clean Water Act does not guarantee our right to clean water. Very, very few Americans have that right. Only those living in municipalities that gave themselves the right, such as in Orange County. They are the only Floridians right now with a right to clean water. What else did that law do? It granted all waterways the right to exist, flow, be free of pollution, and to maintain a healthy ecosystem. Rights to waterways. This is not the right to bear arms, not the right to vote, not the right to gather, just the rights that ecosystems need. Some people think that's an odd notion, but apparently 9 out of 10 folks in Orange County did not think so. And the other very important thing that it did, it granted citizens standing to take polluters to court. I want to talk about this a little bit, and it brings us to the very beginnings of the rights of nature movement, of which Sierra Club was an integral part. Back in 1972, out in the Sequoia National Forest, a developer wanted build a big development. It was going to be very destructive. They were going to bring in big roads, all that sort of stuff. Sierra Club took them to court. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court. The judgment was against them. The justices said, Sierra Club, you do not have standing to file this lawsuit. You are not being directly injured. And if you're not being directly injured, you have nothing to do with this. You don't have standing to bring a case. You don't have a cause of action. Of course, Sierra Club was not interested in any injury to itself or its members. It was interested in the injury that was being done to the ecosystem. But ecosystems don't have rights, not back then. But in his now famous dissenting opinion, Associate Justice William O. Douglas said, you know what? There is a history of inanimate objects being granted legally recognized rights, and aspects of nature should be granted that same recognition. Furthermore, he said that people should have the right to speak on behalf of nature, since it can't speak for itself. In fact, he went so far as to say that in this particular case, Sierra Club versus Morton, the real plaintiff should be Mineral King Valley, the Sequoia National Forest, versus Morton, the developer. because it was the forest, the ecosystem, that was the real party of interest, the party that was being injured. So this is what this law did, and Orange County is now the largest jurisdiction in the nation to pass a right to clean water, rights of nature law. Has anything come of it? Yes. The first rights of nature enforcement case in the nation. This is what's happening. Shortly after Orange County voters approved this law, a developer filed for a permit to develop in wetlands. It's going to be a mix of private and retail buildings. It's going to destroy 114 acres of wetlands in the process. So, one citizen, on behalf of his own rights, but also in the name of the waterways themselves, has sued the developer and the Florida DEP in order to stop the destruction of these wetlands. In this case, some of those wetlands, their specific waterways, are the plaintiffs, just as Douglas said it should be. So, what is it that is being asked of the court? Well, they want the judge to do a few different things. Number one, they're asking for declaratory relief. They want the judge to say, folks in Orange County passed this law, they have the right. If you build, you will be in violation of that right. Likewise, the wetlands have rights. You build, you will be in violation of those rights. Furthermore, they are asking for injunctive relief. They want the judge to say, developer, stop right here. Do not move 1 inch. Cause absolutely no harm until this thing gets resolved in court. And the last thing that they want the judge to do is to instruct the secretary of the DEP to fully administer this law when considering whether or not to issue a permit to this developer. We all know that within the last couple of years, 404 wetlands permitting went from the EPA to the Florida DEP. We're concerned that it's going to be a giveaway, and I think we're seeing an acceleration in permit applications. If the FDP follows the Orange County law, they will not be able to issue that permit because they'll be in violation of the rights of the waterways and of that citizen. So what has happened? Well, I should also note that the Orlando Business Journal says that this is, let me see, get their exact words over here, a lawsuit that will have a major impact on development in Florida. All the developers are watching what happens here. It will have a major impact. It should have a major impact. We are not opposed to development, but development has to be sustainable. This law can better ensure that development that occurs will be sustainable. Needless to say, special interests did not like this. And in 2020, in the Clean Waterways Act, tucked away in this 111-page document, they snuck in one paragraph, and they preempted the authority of local governments to pass laws regarding rights of nature, and in fact, laws granting any rights to citizens that involve nature. This is exactly what it said. A local government regulation, ordinance, code, rule, comprehensive plan, charter, or any other provision of law may not recognize or grant any legal rights to a plant, an animal, a body of water, or any other part of the natural environment that is not a person or political subdivision. I should note that up in Ohio, they did the same thing. It took them 8 years to pass a preemption. Down here in Florida, it took 8 months. But there's a second part to this provision. Nor could a local government grant such person or political subdivision any specific rights relating to the natural environment not otherwise authorized by general law or specifically granted in the state constitution. They're saying that your local government can make no decisions regarding the natural world, which is kind of silly. It's absolutely absurd. That's what local governments do. This would mean that they can't decide whether a development should be built or not. They can't decide to rip out trees in the middle of a road and put in new ones. They can't decide whether or not they want to put some land aside for conservation. They cannot decide to give you a right to clean water. Totally preempted by this provision in the Clean Waterways Act. So this is playing out in court. The government, the DEP, and the developer are going to say, well, you know, that Orange County law is not constitutional because it's been preempted. We're going to argue that the preemption is not constitutional because it's a violation of our home rule rights. And so that's going to play out. But that could take a while. And so last year, we figured that we would take the surest and the quickest way to resolve this. And that was the Right to Clean Water State Constitution Amendment. It was based very much on the Orange County law. Gave those 3 rights. Also, it protected the local governments to set higher standards of environmental protection if deemed necessary. We did not come close to qualifying for the 2022 ballot. Several reasons for that. Number one, a pandemic was a big thing, obviously. There were 17 proposed amendments looking to get on the 2022 ballot. Our Right to Clean Water amendment came in 3rd, even though it was still like years away from the number of petitions that we needed, 891,000. The fact that we only gave ourselves 6 months to do this, we thought we were going to use some nifty technology and that would do the trick. That proved to be not true. And then again, this was a totally grassroots, non-donation campaign. We did not have $20 million to spend on getting this passed, such as those behind the gambling amendments did. So we suspended in-person petitioning at one point because we were not going to put people in harm's way with COVID. And on November 30th, we suspended the effort. Then we got down to work, and we are proposing a new amendment. And I'm going to get to that. It is the Right to Clean and Healthy Waters State Constitutional Amendment. And I'll tell you right up front that we are still a few days away from finalizing the language. So what I share with you here tonight could change a little bit, probably won't change a lot, but it may change some. An indication of that is when I shared this originally with Linda, the name of the amendment was the Right to Clean and Healthy Waterways Act. Now it is the Right to Clean and Healthy Waters Act. That was done for legal reasons. For comparison's sake, I brought the fact that I lived the first 60 years of my life in New York. Back in November, New York became only the 3rd state to pass a green amendment to their state constitution. This is what it said in its entirety. Each person shall have a right to clean air and water and healthful environment. Boom, that's it. I'm glad they passed it. But this law is going to have a lot of problems. Its effectiveness is going to be significantly constrained because It's so vague, it's so short. What exactly does clean and healthful mean? The other side is going to want definitions of those things. What are the penalties for those who violate the law? Can an individual file a suit against the polluter, or is that simply the right of the state to do so? How does this right stand up against polluters' rights? Uncertainty will limit the effectiveness of their law, I'm afraid. They didn't learn as much as they should have from the other two Green Amendments, the one in Pennsylvania and the one in Montana. Our law is far superior to New York's and superior to the one that we offered last election cycle. So let me share with you some of the highlights. First, it states that every person has the fundamental right to clean and healthy waters. Again, only Orange County citizens have that right now. If passed, all Floridians will have this right. The fact that it is a fundamental right immediately triggers something in court. If a fundamental right is at risk, then the court must apply strict scrutiny. It must give the issue the highest of review in making a decision. Why is this such a fundamental right? Well, we have a very direct and very substantial interest in this right because our waters support life, health, our well-being, our recreation, our ecosystems, our property values, our business, and our economies. We have a lot at stake over here. And it specifies this, because what happens in courts, you have two sides and they're both claiming rights and you have a conflict of rights. Which right is going to prevail? Any conflict that arises between this right and rights or expectations created under general law shall be resolved in favor of the right to clean and healthy waters. Our right to these clean and healthy waters comes before any rights given to polluters, whether it be through policy or through a permit. Ours is fundamental. Theirs is statutory, it's regulatory. Ours takes precedence. What was in this law just a couple of days ago, and it wasn't there as of this morning, but I think it's coming back, is that it will also stipulate that this right belongs to all current persons in Florida and those of future generations. Sustainability is a generational issue. We are all concerned about the health of the natural world that we leave our children and our grandchildren. That's what sustainability is all about. Long term, this law would help provide that. Any person in the state of Florida may file an action for any violation or threatened violation of this right in their own name or in the name of the affected waters as the real party in interest. I want to specify, this is not a rights of nature amendment. It is a right to nature amendment for humans. But this language sort of resonates with rights of nature in the fact that any person can file an action in the name of the affected waters as the real party of interest. Again, this goes back to that Sierra Club case that went before the Supreme Court in 1972. This is shifting the legal paradigm, and I hope it also shifts people's thinking. It's not just about us. The way it is now, there's an implication that nature is something separate from and inferior to humans, that we somehow not part of all one community. Well, this shifts that thinking. This gives the affected waterways recognition as a real party of interest, the party being injured. It's not giving nature rights, but it resonates with rights of nature paradigm, sort of. Absolutely essential. Equitable relief may be awarded in the form of declaratory relief or injunctive relief, such as the examples that I gave earlier when speaking about the Orange County lawsuit. Furthermore, damages shall be awarded to restore the waters to their condition prior to the violation. I'll clarify this a little bit. The moment that Florida voters approve this proposed amendment, turning it into law, then a polluter can be held responsible for any pollution beyond what existed when the law came into being. A polluter would not be responsible for pollution that was done 10 years ago. But if he's making it worse from the point of passage, then he has to fix it up. It's got to be paid for. You broke it, you fix it, you pay for it. That's what this says. Furthermore, there are cases where I believe if a plaintiff brings a lawsuit and they lose, they've got to pay against big corporations and stuff. In this case, reasonable attorney's fees and other costs of litigation shall be awarded to the prevailing plaintiff if the court determines such an award to be in the public interest. Governor DeSantis is pushing a law right now about critical race theory. Aspects of that is he is empowering any citizen to file a lawsuit against any district if the citizen feels that the district is teaching critical race theory. He's empowering those citizens. We may argue about the use of this, but in this case, we are empowering any citizen to file a lawsuit and not necessarily to be carried away by the expenses of it. So, the New York law provided no definitions. Ours provide thorough definitions. Here's an example. What does clean and healthy waterways mean? It means waters free of human-caused pollution and other human activity causing harmful or potentially harmful interference with the water's ability to maintain or return to the natural ecological processes and functions. I will note that in the last 6 weeks, we have reached out to both legal experts and ecological experts, asking for their input, their guidance, their expertise in fashioning the language of this law. Such processes and functions include, but are not limited to, maintaining the natural and historic flow regime that has echoes of the Orange County law in it, providing habitat of sufficient size and connectivity to support self-sustaining native aquatic and riparian species, maintaining physical and chemical water quality and water quantity conditions able to support healthy, thriving, and resilient biological communities. Again, somewhat like the Orange County law. Very specific. It's not going to have to be contested. What does clean mean? What does healthy mean? We are dictating what it means. And when the voters approve it, that's what it will mean. This standard shall be determined by the best available science, which may be more stringent than standards promulgated by government agencies. This is very important, because often what happens in court is that the court has to sort of defer to what our agency says is best for our waterways or for our ecosystems. What the law is doing here is empowering courts to make the best use of available science. They don't necessarily have to go by what the DEP says. It can bring in other scientists. It can evaluate, and it can end up using the best science available to set truly scientifically sound standards. We all know that agencies are influenced by political ideologies and by special interests. Court can determine best practices, best policies before stakeholders get their influence on it. I also want to note that the coverage that is being provided here is very wide, but it is very appropriate. It covers just about everything. Rivers, lakes, bays, lagoons, aquifers, estuaries, streams, creeks, riverine systems, estuarine systems, springs, wetlands. I'll get back to wetlands in a moment. Intracoastal and territorial coastal waters and other naturally occurring water bodies and their natural or artificial tributaries, including canals, such as in Cape Coral. This term shall include fresh, brackish, saline, tidal, surface, and underground waters. Waters owned entirely by one person other than the state are included only in regard to activities which affect waters protected by this section. Underground waters include, but are not limited to, all underground waters passing through pores of rock or soils or flowing through channels. Again, we reached out to experts to get their input. I want to go back to the wetlands for a moment, because the second most popular amendment of the 5 that we proposed last year was the Wetlands Protection Amendment. We all know how incredibly valuable wetlands are. Florida has already lost 9.3 million acres of wetlands, 46% of all our wetlands. Someone's got to come along and draw a line in the sand and say, that's it, no more. Up in Orange County, they were using that amendment to draw the line in the sand. And we shall see what happens. I live in Cape Coral. I have about 350 acres behind me. Yet when we bought this house, we were told it would never be developed. It's a mix of wetlands and uplands. We've got coyotes back there, bobcats back there. We've got bald eagles. Bears pass through. There are even some signs that there's a panther back there, or has been. It's a wildlife haven. Now a developer wants to develop there. It's a manatee area. I do not have the same legal avenues as a citizen up in Orange County. If Cape Coral or Lee County had a law like Orange County, then if necessary, I can go ahead and do what that citizen is doing. I didn't quite catch everything that was said by the gentleman in that 3-minute video earlier on. But if your county had such a law, or if this amendment was approved, then you would have another legal tool at your disposal to perhaps fight what is going on over there. So once again, very specific definitions to avoid any sort of contention inside courts. So I'll just sum up here a little bit. Number 1, this act addresses the systemic failure of environmental protection in Florida. Something needs to be done. We have been fighting for clean water for 50 years. That's what I learned when I came down here. 50 years. Something obviously is dramatically wrong, systemically wrong, if you have to fight for clean water for 50 years. It recognizes that our right to clean and healthy waterways is fundamental, and it takes precedence over the rights of polluters. It empowers courts to champion sound science in creating sound environmental standards and practices. It begins the shift to more ecocentric policy structures and sustainability. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we are getting this right, and we're also recognizing waterways as the real party of interest. Changing policy structures, changing our way of thinking as well. And it begins, I believe, to heal what obviously is a very unhealthy relationship with nature. Just a beginning. I mean, this one law is not going to do it instantaneously. Once this law gets passed, then a body law gets built around it. But this is the beginning. So, by the way, I should have mentioned, you've seen some pretty spectacular photographs tonight. Almost all of them gorgeous ones. There was only one ugly one in there of blue-green algae. almost virtually all these photos come with the permission of noted photographer John Moran. He was gracious enough to give us his permission to use them. But I mean, I'm using them because they reflect what we want our relationship to nature to manifest itself as, what it should look like. And too often it doesn't. So what am I asking? I've given presentations before and people say, well, what can we do? And at the time, I didn't have anything for them to do because we didn't even have a petition. Well, I was hoping I would have a petition for you to sign tonight. I don't have that petition. It is being finalized. It should be available within the next 3 weeks because it gets finalized and it gets sent to the Division of Elections to be approved. And then immediately it will show up on its Right to Clean Water 2024.org website. And I urge everybody to sign it if you like what you have heard this evening. Once you sign it, I would urge you to urge 3 other people that you know, not strangers, people who know you, trust your judgment, and are likely to do as you ask. Ask them to sign the petition, and then ask them to do the same thing. Ask 3 people that know and trust them to go out and do the same thing. This changes the impact of one signed petition 12 times, but remember my math correctly. Promote us on social media. The more the word gets out there, the better. I will note here that one absolutely gigantic difference between our campaign this time around and last time is that now we have professionals involved. We are going to spend somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 to $12 million if we can keep it that low. We have engaged professional campaign manager, professional fundraisers, professionals to do our digital marketing, our websites, and they will do social media as well. But we also have a grassroots side of this, of which Paula and Kathleen are part. And we're going to do grassroots petition gathering. It's absolutely essential for people to get on the street and spread the word that way. And we'll also do our own social media, and I would urge you to do so. If you liked what you heard tonight, please recommend me. We have other speakers as well to other groups that you might belong to. If we are going to reach that plateau of 981,000 petitions, then we are going to be more dependent upon our allies and our partners. I hope that some of you viewers tonight will want to become Right to Clean Water ambassadors, along with Paula and Kathleen. Help us get the word out. And I think I belong to Sierra Club Calusa Group. We don't usually have this many people on a call, I'm afraid. Fighting for this amendment could be another issue for your members to get geared up about and to work towards. We would appreciate that. We need that. Become a Right to Clean Water ambassador. Endorse. Your particular group cannot endorse us. This has to come from the state chapter of Sierra Club. We have been in close contact with them. They have had input into the language of this amendment. We are hoping that they will endorse us. We shall see. And we are certainly looking to get some big donations from those who are deep-pocketed, but we also, sort of like Bernie Sanders, we're looking for a lot of donations from everyday folks. And you'll be able to do that in just a couple of weeks by going to Right to Clean Water 2024.org. Anything that you would donate would be obviously very helpful. So I think I'm just about at my time. I work on those things that I think hold the greatest promise for real change, and Linda spoke about them earlier. The first one has to do with the carbon tax, because that is our most effective tool to drawing down carbon emissions and getting a handle on climate change. And the other one is this. There's still an element of rights of nature in it, and rights of nature is absolutely a core issue. How we perceive our relationship to nature, that has to change. Rights of nature, right to clean water laws help promote that change. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing, and I will be happy to take any questions.
Joe, before we open it up to the general questions, we do have the secret question that you sent me, and it is, why is this law likely to be much more effective than New York's recently passed Green Amendment? So if anyone would like to put their answer in the chat, we will be glad to, if we need to, maybe give some hints. Don't be shy. It's not for a lot of money, it's for a hat. Come on. Oh, you guys are killing me. I can't answer. I'm not allowed to answer.
Okay, we have an answer.
Yay.
Yes, it is. It is many times more specific. It had to be if it's going to be effective. This law is more specific than New York's. It's more specific than Pennsylvania's. It's more specific than Montana's.
Well, thank you. David was first in the chat, so we are going to be sending him the hat. Now I'm going to open it up for just the general questions. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. Mary Cassell, let's see, do you have any in the chat you would like to share?
I saw somebody ask how many petitions are needed and what's the time frame. We need 981,000 signed petitions and approved, and we have until February 1st, 2024 to accumulate all those amendments. I will also say that at 222,000 amendments, a trigger kicks in and we get Supreme Court review. And then they say, okay, everything in this amendment is sound, continue. They might say, well, nope, we don't like this language over here. You're going to have to remove it or change it, in which case we have to start from scratch again, which is what happened in the not too distant future, I think, regarding marijuana law. That's one reason why we have reached out so extensively to legal experts, so that there will be no issues at that Supreme Court review.
So this is Mary. We do have a question here. Who is most affected by the compromised bodies of water here in Florida? I think Grace asked this question. Again, who is most affected by the compromised bodies of water?
I could not provide a definitive answer to that. I think unhealthy bodies of water affect such a large population that it would be hard to say, but I haven't looked at demographics. Often in these cases, I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to make a statement that I really am not confident that I'm an authority about.
That's fine. Okay. And her other question was about the manatee deaths that you quoted. Were they just in Florida, or were these worldwide deaths?
Oh,
Or
no,
just
no.
the species we have here?
That's just in Florida, and that's a record.
Okay.
It's an odd situation over there, because now we are spending, I think we're spending millions of dollars to try to save them from starvation by feeding them, which you really shouldn't be doing. It's not a good practice. But nothing is being done really to get to the root cause, which is the fact that our polluted water has killed off the seagrass that they feed on. And it goes back to the article that I mentioned before. Lawmakers admit best management practices isn't working, but they're not fixing it. All the money that we're pumping into the reservoir system at Lake O, that doesn't get to the root cause. It's not stopping pollution. It's treating it after it happens.
Well, we will be sure to put the website and the donor link in our next Turtle Tracks. And we will be following up with everybody that's registered. I see that we have it coming up that your website will be up and going February 14th.
Yes, it should be up by then.
Okay.
One more question, Joe.
Sure.
As you know, this is from Mary Mertz, there is a bill now in the legislature to severely constrain citizen proposed constitutional amendments. Will passage of this bill impact this initiative?
I know about the bill. Once again, the legislature is trying to constrain citizen efforts, but what was the question?
Okay, there's a bill now in the legislature to severely constrain citizen proposed constitutional amendments. Will the passage of this bill impact this initiative?
It very well could, yes.
Okay,
So that is it's so undemocratic what they're doing over here. It's absolutely crazy. How far are they going to go? To say that the people, I mean, that's our document. We get to amend it when we deem it is necessary. What the heck is more rudimentary American than that? And they want to deny us that right? Well, I hope people scream bloody murder over that one.
yeah. You came across in the very beginning very powerfully. I thought it really impacted all of us. You couldn't hear a pin drop as you gave us that particular point, that the Constitution is ours and we need to stand up. We need to hold everyone accountable that's representing us, our officials, our commissioners, everyone we can think of. All commissioners at pbcgov.org is a great website, or a great email address. So great talk, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to add one more point and then I'll sign off. But if that law was to pass, constraining our right to amend the Constitution, I'm sure there would be a lawsuit, very much like the Orange County lawsuit, where citizens would contend that the legislature does not have the constitutional right to do that. That's my guess. I'm not an attorney, but that's my guess. So, well, if there are no more questions, thank you very much, everybody. It was a pleasure to be here tonight. Bye-bye.
Thanks again for your presentation. It was great.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Linda, you're
Thank you,
muted.
Joe.
Linda, are you trying to say something? You're muted.
Yep, I was going to say goodbye and thank you to Joe. I think he may have left, but I am going to stop the recording now.